There's this myth that you hear on pretty much every casino floor. This idea of a secret system, some kind of hidden pattern that can turn a game of chance into your own personal cash machine. It promises control, discipline, and the one thing everybody wants, a guaranteed win. But is it a secret weapon, or is it just a really good story?
And that's really the big question we're going to dig into today. Can a specific pattern of betting actually overcome the mathematical edge the casino has in a game like Blackjack? All right, let's jump in and see what the numbers have to say.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what these systems promise you. Then, we'll check out two of the most famous examples, the Martingale and the Fibonacci. And finally, we're going to pull back the curtain on the one mathematical truth that makes the whole idea come crashing down. All right, first up, let's talk about the appeal. Why are these systems so tempting? Well, it all comes down to getting a feeling of control when it seems like everything is just random chaos.
So, what are we even talking about here? At its heart, a betting system is just a simple set of rules for how much money to bet, and it's all based on whether you just won or lost the last hand. That's it. It has absolutely nothing to do with the cards you get. So why do these systems feel so right, even when the math says they're wrong? Well, it's all psychology. First, they give you a plan, some structure in a game of pure chance, which makes you feel like you're in control. Then, you might hit a lucky streak, which is just random luck or variance, and your brain immediately thinks, hey, the system is working. And of course, there's selective memory. We all remember that one amazing win and just kind of forget the dozen times the system completely blew up in our face.
Okay, let's move on to our first big example and see this in action. This is probably the most famous betting system out there, the Martingale, or as I like to call it, the fast lane to going broke. The logic behind it is, well, it's incredibly simple, and that's what makes it so tempting. You lose a hand? No problem. Just double your bet. You keep doubling after every single loss until, bam, you finally win. And when that win comes, it's guaranteed to cover all your previous losses and give you a nice little profit. Then you just reset back to your original bet and start all over. It sounds foolproof, right? But here it is. Here's the fatal flaw. The risk doesn't just grow, it grows exponentially. Just look at this. A simple $5 starting bet becomes $160 after just 6 losses in a row. A few more losses, and you're either going to hit the table's betting limit or you're just going to run out of cash. See, the Martingale doesn't fail because you had bad luck. It's mathematically designed to fail because that risk will always, eventually, outrun your bankroll. Okay, so if the Martingale is just way too aggressive, what about a slower, maybe safer seeming approach? Let's take a look at the Fibonacci system. It basically promises the same results, but with a much less terrifying ride to get there. This one uses that famous number sequence you probably learned about in math class. When you lose, you just move to the next number in the sequence for your next bet. When you win, you move back 2 spots. So the bets go up, but way more gradually than the crazy doubling you see in the Martingale. And you can really see that difference clearly here. The Martingale's risk just shoots for the moon, while the Fibonacci risk, well, it grows at a much more moderate pace. But you notice I still said it grows. The core problem is exactly the same. A long losing streak, which is mathematically bound to happen eventually, is still going to push your bets up to a level you can't sustain. It just takes a little bit longer to get to that disaster point. And this all brings us to the most important part of this whole explainer. We've seen how the systems work on the surface, but now we need to understand why, mathematically, every single one of them is destined to fail. Here it is. This is the single concept that completely dismantles every betting system. Changing your bet size does not and cannot change the game's expected value. Just think of expected value as the average amount of money you're set to win or lose on any given hand if you played it millions of times. In Blackjack, that average is always a tiny loss for the player. That's the house edge. A betting system doesn't touch that core math. It just changes how much money you're willing to risk on that guaranteed losing average. This table just lays it all out, plain and simple. What does a betting system actually change? Only one thing, the amount of money you put at risk. That's it. And what does it not change? Well, everything that actually matters. The rules of the game, the probability of you winning any given hand, and most critically, the house edge. Those things are set in stone. No betting pattern in the world can touch them. This quote from our source material just says it all perfectly. Betting systems rearrange variance. They do not alter the destination. You can make your time at the table feel like a wild roller coaster with huge ups and downs, or a slower, gentler ride. But no matter how you arrange the trip, the final destination is always the same. Over time, the house edge will get you.
So, if systems are a dead end, what actually works? Well, the answer is something called basic strategy. And the difference, as you can see, is like night and day. Betting systems sell you an illusion of control. Basic strategy is all about making disciplined decisions. Systems massively increase your risk for zero reward, while proper strategy actually reduces the house edge as much as possible. It's not some secret code for winning every time. It's a mathematical tool for losing less over the long run. And that is the only real advantage a player can ever get.
So we'll end with this question for you to think about. When you use a betting system, it really feels like you're in the driver's seat, making smart moves. But in reality, you're just a passenger, following a rigid set of rules that forces you to risk more and more of your money, usually at the worst possible moment. The only system that truly works is using your brain to make smart, disciplined decisions, not chasing a magic bullet that, I promise you, just isn't there.